Now, the next four things I'm going to talk about are really about things that have been eroded over the last 10 years, I would say. And this is the first is the primacy of parents as the educators. And the whole process of curriculum development needs to center the voices of parents, to paraphrase terms that people use in university. We need to center the voices of parents because they're the people should be in the driving seat. The stakeholders can be giving their input, coming with proposals in terms of what should be added to the curriculum, etc. But the final voice needs to be the parental one. And we need to find a way of doing that, finding a democracy for parents, a method of democracy so that parents can actually have a vote or whatever on the fundamentals. So they need to have access to all the classroom materials. So once you've agreed on a curriculum, you're rolling that curriculum out. I think it should be written in legislation that parents have a right to access that material in whatever form. It could be electronic or paper, but it needs to be available. Yeah.
Currently, the government buys the books stay locked up at school. And as you can see on this slide here, there are the notion of secrecy pacts, class contracts, the NCCA document that says what happens in the class stays in the class, and that goes for teachers. So there should be no secrets from parents. There should be full transparency. Let us see the books. Let us be part of that process, and never ask a child to sign a contract.
Yeah, absolutely, Jazz. So these things have to be taken out. These things came in the more recent curriculum, and they're not appropriate. And again, certain people with agendas have been pushing those things into the curriculum. So, and this whole thing of co-production. Now, the notion of co-production isn't a bad idea, so to speak, that a child would say, could we talk about XYZ today in the class? Because it's topical. Perhaps something has come up in the news, for example, about something, right? And it's appropriate to talk about. So I think that's okay within a certain proviso. The proviso is that particular topic is explicitly within the scope of the curriculum and has been called out as such, and is not something that the parents have no awareness of. I didn't know that fisting and rimming, for example, I'm taking that example because that's a relevant one, was part of the curriculum, because I don't see it written in the curriculum. And the reason it wasn't written in the curriculum is because the definition of intimacy that was used encompasses everything. It's unlimited. So any sexual act at all is in scope, right? That's the way the SPHE curriculum for the junior cycle was written today. That's what it is in the curriculum. So that's a problem. So parents that's a subtlety that parents wouldn't have realized, and they wouldn't realize that there could be any sort of discussion of BDSM or whatever, right?
Australia had bestiality in Australia, so it's not far off from what we're seeing come into the classroom here, those outer limits and the things that are just beyond the norm, because it's all influenced by queer theory, which queer is beyond the limits and outside any norm.
It's the opposite to the norm.
Opposite to norm, yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem. So we need to remove things like that are subverting the rights of parents, sneaking stuff in, because that opens the door. It mightn't come in this year, it mightn't come in next year, but it could come in the following year, and and it could always come in through a co-production type scenario. So that's that one. Get rid of that. The lack of safeguarding. This has to come back. I mean, you're in a very perilous position legally when this is not in place. And for the curriculum books and materials that are supported, and then any sort of changes and any other sort of whole school activity that may engage with the children. They all have to be subject to appropriate vetting and safeguarding. And any changes have to be also vetted for the same reasons. We got to bring it back. It's just a discipline. I don't know where it went, but it needs to come back.
And most schools and principals, just to let all of our listeners know, most schools would assume that when they purchase books, and whether it's from Edco or Folins or Gill, that those would be signed off on. That's the assumption. And I know that because I met with my school. The assumption is the books would have sign off. However, we have a letter from the Department of Education clarifying that the Department of Education has no sign off or oversight of the books. And Carol Nolan on the 4th of November asked the former Minister for Education, McEntee, about this, and she confirmed it as well in the Dáil that there's no sign off of these books. So we have that in writing. It's been said in the Dáil. There is absolutely no sign off, safeguarding statement, or risk assessment. So if a child is harmed in a classroom by what's taught, that parent would have a pretty strong lawsuit. And we've seen it happen in other countries. And that's what's going to happen in Ireland if we don't get this sign off in process. And you can be sure that if there's no sign off, the school's insurance company will not cover those damages. It will come down to the school, the teacher, the board of management who let this into the classroom.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the next one is respect for religious ethos and parental opt-out. So the first thing is, as per the Education Act today, as it exists, the ethos of a school has to be respected. And so that means that specific content may be taught in that school. So in a Catholic school, it would be preparation for the sacraments, for example. And that's an opt-out. So, if there's other children in that school who aren't of a Catholic faith, they can be opt-out, and that has to be fully supported, facilitated, I would say. It's not just that the parent has to come to the gate and pick the child up. It's that it's facilitated within the school properly as an opt-out. And that should, again, apply to any school, because, we are going to see probably more Muslim schools, and we may have Catholic children or children of no faith attending those schools, and their parents may not be happy that they would get exposed to any religious material, and that's fine, and that needs to be respected in those schools as well from an opt-out perspective. So we still need to respect this ethos thing. And I know, again, that there's radical politicians who believe there should be no religious opt-out, I suspect a lot of them would support it for the Muslim children, but not for the Catholic children.
Yeah.
I should be very frank about that, right? Because these radicals tend to be that way, right? So they tend to have a bias against Catholics, but they'll support Muslims. No, we're not going to be a country like that. I'm sorry. So the Marxists need to go and take the back seat here, and parents need to make that clear that that's not acceptable. Catholic ethos needs to be upheld. Any other religious ethos, Jewish, Muslim, whatever it is, if a school has that ethos, that needs to be respected. And I think we all need to be in line with that.
Yeah.
So, and then, it does make sense that any deviations from the curriculum, etc., would be reviewed with the department to make sure that ultimately the coverage is still there, etc., and that it's still within the bounds of what would be expected. So, based on, the rights of the child to an education, all that kind of thing. And then the right to the parental output, though, has to be respected regardless of what the ethos is, what type of school it is, and regardless of what subject it is. So at all times, that has to be respected. It's the primacy of parents again. Last thing, the books. So this has been our bugbear, Jana. We've been on this page for so long. So right now, there is no process of certification and quality control on the books that are produced for any subject, particularly the more sensitive subjects. But the way that with the whole school approach, every subject became a sensitive subject, because you could have anything, SPHE stuff, appearing in any of the other books. So this has to stop, right? So I think, and the taxpayer is paying for these books ultimately. And I think that a teacher, to be fair to the teachers in the school, they need to know that there's a level of quality assurance on that book. So Folens or Gill or whoever it is, say, oh, here, can you take our books, take our SPHE books, our English books, etc. I think they need to know that that book is certified to align with the curriculum and has undergone a safeguarding review. So the book is appropriate, it hits the curriculum, and it gets a seal of approval, right? And it goes on a list of approved books that parents can then access as well. And so every school should only be teaching or should only be using books from that approved list, basically. If they're going to use a book, they could use just the online toolkits if they wanted to. I think that's always allowed for. But if they're going to use a book, it needs to be approved. And then if there's complaints, the complaint process is through the department, and the department engage with the publisher. And if the publisher refuses, for example, to make changes to bring their book in line, then they could lose the certification on that book. And the key then is that book should not be a sponsored book. It should not be on the list that can be purchased and paid for by the taxpayer.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to buy that book, they can buy it, but it's not an approved book anymore, and it wouldn't be free, as it were, to the schools. So we just need to put a process to tighten this up, put the controls in place, and I think everybody should be happy with that, because right now it's a free for all. It literally is. They could put anything in a book right now, and we saw it with the example of the woolly sweaters. The Irish family, and everyone had a big got up in arms about that. And then if they'd actually turned the page,
the genderbread person is just a few pages ahead.
Yeah, the genderbread person was in the same book, but nobody knew at the time, right? So the foundational learning, the subjects need to be preserved and taught and particularly at the primary school level, things like mathematics and English are just have to have primacy. You cannot be contaminating them with, things about SDGs or climate change or things like non-binary identities. We've seen this coming into English, right?
Book pages about, the critical race theory, BLM, and how to be an activist. No, I don't want my children to go to school to learn how to be an activist. I want them to go to learn their foundational learning skills so they can make, their way in life.
Exactly. So preserve your subjects, right? And if you're going to talk about some of those things, you do that in a separate subject dedicated context, right? And again, taking all the ideological bias out, so that what the kids are getting is as fact-based and as neutral as it possibly can be. Again, allowing for the schools with a particular ethos to actually do their things. So that's fine. The pedagogical approach, as I said, should be a neutral one, an apolitical one. That means not using critical pedagogy or queer pedagogy or any equivalent of same. So you have to get a neutral, and unfortunately, this changes the way the way people are being taught in the colleges right now for teacher training. They study people like John Dewey. They study people like Paulo Freire. John Dewey and Paulo Freire are much the same. They had the same kind of philosophies, to be honest, just in different time periods. And that's not what you should be bringing into the school, to be honest. That's bringing in a political bias. And then there's absolutely an allowance for specific school ethos. Emphasis on rational critical thinking, as I mentioned. So this is again, free from bias, because critical theory is not free from bias. It's rooted in Marxism. So it's not, and fundamentally in its modern form, it's accumulated lots of other things as well. It's picked up stuff from postmodernism, etc. That's not what we want to be teaching. We don't want to be engaging in moral relativism with our children, or not saying that there's no objective truth to them. There is objective truth. There is science.
And we've had kids and families very upset when schools have brought, political things such as the, Gaza, Palestine. You might have that brought into the class, moments of silence, teaching about that, whereas some kids in the class may be pro-Israel. But guess what? You shouldn't be bringing any of that in the class in the spirit of diversity and inclusivity. That puts a divide in the class. So keep those politics out of the classroom and stop telling kids what to think. Teach them how to think.
Yeah. My personal experience at school, the main issue we had was republicanism was an issue in our school from time to time. People would be bringing in Republican themes. And that wasn't a good time, because the Republicans weren't doing good things in terms of bombings and stuff like that in this country. And a lot of people might remember that, but I do remember it. And I always did not like when that was brought into the classroom. I prefer keep that stuff out of the class. If you want to engage in that in your own time, do it, but don't bring it. Teachers in particular shouldn't be bringing that into the classroom. So, okay, so that's enough said on that one. And again, allowance for the school ethos. Okay, let's move on. I said this in my feedback. I think we need a different approach to the CSPE and the SPHE, or the well-being subjects. And my counter proposal is what I have here. And it would be to bring stuff that's very practical for children that they don't tend to get in school. Things like financial planning, understanding the financial system. There would be relationships and sexuality education as before, but it would be, again, no political aspect to it, and very much age appropriate, and with due regard to safeguarding. You can see things there like politics and political history. I think it's important for children to get a grounding in some of that, and essential IT skills, for example. Public speaking and debating it needs to be promoted. It's very important, and things like goal setting, planning, time management. So this is just a mix. So I don't want to get stuck on any of these particularly, but the point is that this would replace the well-being aspect. I don't think
relationships, Eugene, just to add that marriage and loving relationships has been taken out of the relationship education in school. So relationships in our new proposal, the new life skills for modern living, should talk about marriage and starting a family, especially with the declining birth rates in Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'll make a point. All of this will be absolutely abhorrent to a lot of people in our universities today who are studying things like gender studies and women's studies and queer theory and various things like that, right? So those people are all inherently Marxists, because that's the grounding of their subject matter. They mightn't see themselves as that. They might see themselves as progressives or something else. Unfortunately, all those things are grounded in Marxist critical theory. We do not want that influencing our curriculum. They wanted it to influence the curriculum because they want to breed more Marxists. But no, parents need to say no to that. We're not going to have that. I'm sorry. We need to have our classrooms clean of any of that kind of stuff. That's the point I want to make. And any other sort of social engineering that the EU or the United Nations or UNESCO or somebody want to bring in because they've got a particular agenda. No, that's not education. So keep it out, right? Now, I do make a point here that when in studying relationships and sex education, there is aspects of biology and science and medicine that go into that. And so there is a certain grounding in those subjects that is needed that you often don't get because sometimes children they don't have an option for biology in their school, for example, or the number of subjects you always have to cut down for exam purposes, right? So if they're not going to be doing full biology classes or science, then they're going to lack that information. So they need to get that in the subject. They need to get as much as they need in the subject itself. Similarly, if you're going to talk about climate change, you need to have some knowledge of physics and geography, etc.
Yeah.
So that you can talk about it in the context of reality and the real data, etc. So you shouldn't be doing things that you don't have that grounding in. If you're just telling kids that this is the narrative, believe it or believe it not, you have to believe in it, basically, is what they're taught today. That's indoctrination. That's not teaching. So
yeah, for climate, Eugene, why don't they show the students the history of how the climate's always changed, so they can see the data and the tables and the studies to show that it's always changed, and also let the kids use their critical thinking to make their own mind up on whether we have a crisis. But no, instead they'll just tell them the Earth's on fire, it's going to blow up, we have a crisis, you should be fearful.
Yeah, no. So there is some baseline, and you can see the examples I have there. Like Irish history, there's some basics of Irish history that every child should get in Ireland, and some basics of world history that they should get. And that's appropriate. And if you were in France, I would expect that you would get some basics of French history, or whatever country you're in, that you'd get. That should apply to everyone. Like even non-nationals that come to this country need to understand aspects of our history. It's really important. They want to become part of the community. So I talked about science and geography related to the environment, and commerce. If you're going to get into things like financial planning and budgeting, even at a small level, you do need to have some knowledge of some of the basics. So that's what this would encompass. Get these foundations right, and then parents can rest at night knowing that their children are in safe hands, and that they're not going to be exposed to stuff that's inappropriate, not etc., or radicalizing them in some way. And that their education has been harmed basically because of that. I think if you put these things in place, then we should achieve that.
Thanks, Eugene, for that. And thanks everyone for doing the survey.